Sometimes I wish that I could tell everybody about the amazing things I've seen out there in the world. Under the sea, amazing things have happened. You know, it was my ancestor, a whale, who one day had Nabi Yunus in his mouth. I have amazing stories that have happened over time.
Gribbik, I have amazing stories too, you know. Amazing things. I just wish somebody could have understood my language so I could explain it all to them.
Assalamu alaikum. Whoa, you can understand us? Did you just say assalam to us? Because I understood that. It's a dream you're having, guys. But that's okay. Because I'm here to tell you an amazing story, which is true, in your dream. And I can understand what you're saying. Really? Oh, wow, my dreams come true. I was hoping that I could explain something to someone about the world of under the sea. And I wanted to tell everybody about the world over the sea. And you, Penguin, you got stories to tell too, right? Hello, Penguin? Earth to Penguin. I think he's fallen asleep. That's okay. I think Penguin's listening as well. And I want to tell you about a king a long time ago. Ooh, a king. I love stories of kings. Me too. This king was the great king who was also a prophet of God. Really? How often does that happen? I know, eh? A king and a prophet? What was his name? His name was Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam. And you know what? Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam is a prophet that all the religions except the Jews, the Christians, the Muslims, because he was a great prophet sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Christians called him Solomon. And the stories that you read in the Bible and in the Jewish scriptures are a lot like the stories that you read in the Holy Quran about Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam. Do you know that this great king had so many things?
Really? Gribbik? A whole empire? Gribbik?
Oh yeah, huge empire. So big that it covered the land and the sea.
Ooh, the fish too?
Yes, and the jinns as well.
The jinns?
You know the jinns. Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam had power over them all. He had a kingdom greater than even his own father Dawood's, and he was even more efficient in governing it. And, you know, Allama Majlisi explains that after Nabi Sulaiman married Queen Bilqis of Yemen, his kingdom extended from the Mediterranean to the Indian Ocean.
Oh yeah, I know about the Indian Ocean.
Yeah, it's a huge span. So basically, he had the largest empire in the world. You could say that he basically ruled the entire world.
Gribbik, that's a huge, big king. Wow, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really gifted this prophet, huh?
Yes, and one of the reasons that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gifted so many things to Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam was because he was a very thankful king. And he was so pious. And he was always thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wow, he must have been something to have power over fish too? Yes, he had power over animals, over jinn, over shayateen, and men.
Whoa, Gribbik, did you just say shayateen?
Yeah, like the jinns and these shayateen are the ones who were the wild, evil people, evil jinns, and he could control them all. And Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam had huge castles and temples, and he had them made, and he used to use the shayateen to carry these huge stones from Persia and sell them for him in Syria. Whoa, how to carry those big stones across such a huge empire? That's right, he had the power over the wind. Huh? Yeah. He used to be able to direct the wind and make hurricanes happen. And because he had the power over the wind, he could make his whole empire fly. No, come on. You're making this up. You're just making this up, huh? No, I'm not making this up. In fact, he had power over iron and copper. Nabi Dawood alayhi salam had the power to soften iron. Nabi Sulaiman had power to do that and more. And he used to make it soft, and it would conform to whatever shape he wanted it to conform. And you know what's very interesting? This part you're going to love. Gribik, tell me. I want to know too. What's the special thing? Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam had the power to understand the language of animals. What? He could have understood me? Gribik, he could have understood me too. And Penguin, quiet Penguin over there, he'd have understood what you wanted to say too. That's right. Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam had the ability to understand the language of the birds and of all the animals. And Imam Ali alayhi salam has said, and this is narrated to us from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught the bird's speech to Sulaiman, the son of David, as well as the speech of every living creature in the land and sea. Whoa, that's amazing. Gribik, how can we know this? Are you sure about this? It's true, because it's mentioned in the Holy Quran that Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam once went to an area where the little tiny ants were talking. And he could understand what the ants were saying. What? Ants are, Gribik, so small. How in the world can he hear an ant? Well, because he had power over the winds. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had made it that he could hear anybody whispering anywhere in the world. That's why Imam Zamana Ajjalallahu Ta'ala Farajahum Sharif has powers that allow him to hear us when we call him, and to hear all the difficulties that the Muslims are facing. In fact, the sixth Imam, Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, explained that whatever powers Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam had, all the Imams have them too. What? The Imams can understand animals? Absolutely. Don't you know the story of Imam Rida alayhi salam, who talked to the deer? Oh yeah, the Zamin of the Ahu, yeah? Oh man, he could understand what the deer was saying. Yeah, you have a point there. Yes. And what's very interesting is that not only could he speak the language of the animals and the birds and the fish in the sea, but he could also understand and speak the languages of the humans. The sixth Imam, Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, has explained that Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam, used to talk in Farsi, in Persian, when he was in a battle. And he used to talk in Roman whenever he addressed the troops of his kingdom. And when he used to pray, he used Arabic. And whenever he was giving justice and giving his judgments, he spoke Arabic and delivered his rulings in Arabic. So subhanallah, he was blessed with every language possible, and he was so full of wisdom and power. Imagine having castles, having power over jinn and shayateen, being able to melt iron, being able to hear the languages, being able to fly, and being able to conduct the winds and make them fly faster. And that's why he could travel great distances, just because the wind would move so fast. Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam was blessed in every way possible. And he was so thankful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala kept giving him more and more. In fact, one of the prayers that he did when he asked from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, he said, "Oh Allah, make me so thankful that it is the only job that I do in my life." Wow, that's a humble king. Yeah, imagine when you have so much, but you don't forget to thank Allah. That's pretty awesome. There's a story that I want to tell you, especially since you like to know stories about your ancestors, the fish, right? Yeah. Did anything happen with fish in Nabi Sulaiman? Oh yeah, it's such a beautiful story. It is said that Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam had a huge army. And when they used to stand in front of him, it would cover about 35 miles. That army was so huge that he could see there would be jinn and human beings and shayateen and animals, the lions and the tigers, and everybody was at his disposal. And he would look at his army and he would take stock of them all. Basically, he could see the entire world bowing to him since he was a king. One day, Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam was sitting at the beach. Oh yeah, that's where the fish come in this story, huh? Yes. And you know, Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam, because he had such a big army, it is said that in a day, he used to spend 70 million of the currency of that time. 70 million? Whoa, he must have been rich. He owned the entire world. So yeah, he had a lot of money. 70 million was just in one day. Whoa, that's a lot of people to feed, man. Yeah, but think of how many Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala feeds in a day. Whoa, radical. Yeah. Well, he was sitting on the beach, and a fish came out of the water. I know, like that. Something like that. So this fish comes out of the water and says, "Ya Nabi Sulaiman, why don't you feed me for one day?" Whoa, yeah? What did Nabi Sulaiman say? Sure, I've got so much food here, I could feed you for days. That's exactly what Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam said. He said, no problem. And he got his army to bring 1 month's food, 1 month's worth of food for the army. So how much was he spending for a day? I know this one, 70 million. That's right. One day, 70 million. So he made enough food available to the fish for that army to eat for a whole month. 70 million times 30 days? My calculator is kind of jamming up. Penguin, can you figure it out? Penguin? Oh man, why do you keep falling asleep, man? Oh, he's drinking water. Okay, yeah, enjoy it. He has got his special Ahlul Bayt TV cup. I don't know, man. This guy is having too much fun sleeping on the job. Nah, he's tired. So what happened was the fish saw all this food, yeah, and said, oh man, I'm going to have a party with this food. The fish, you know what he did? He came out of the water. Oh, I know how. Yes, but you know what he did? He did that, but he ate all the food in one go. What? Sister say, Grebek, what? What, man? He ate all that? 70 million worth of food for a month? Lordy Lord, what kind of fish was this, man? Remind me never to invite him for dinner. Well, he gulped all the food in one hapch. Nabi Sulaiman, he said, this much food is not enough for me for even one day. What a fish, I mean. Well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him a big appetite. This fish could eat a lot, 30 days worth of food for the whole army. He could eat in one gulp. The fish, when he said this, this is not enough for even one day for me, Nabi Sulaiman was really surprised. And he said, not even for one day? Are there more fish like you? And you know what the fish said? The fish said, there are 1,000 species like me. You mean that's where the fish are going? Someone's eaten them all up in the ocean. No wonder I can't get one to eat. There's some that eat so much in one day. Yeah, this is the glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why Nabi Sulaiman said, glory be to Allah, the great king. That even a great king like myself can't feed a fish for even half a day. So imagine how great Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. Gribik, that is awesome. Gribik. Well, you know, Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam also spoke to the birds. Anybody know what the bird's name was? Who knows? Half there. Hoopoe. What? The bird's name is Hoopoe. Hoopoe bird. Oh, like Hudhud. Yeah, the Arabic name for that bird is the Hudhud. And Nabi Sulaiman used to have the Hudhud, and it had X-ray vision. Gribik, it could see through things. Yeah, it could look through the earth's surface and figure out where the water was. And Nabi Sulaiman especially used this bird because it knew how to find water. And when they all needed to pray, and the army, the entire huge army needed water to pray and do wudu, it was the Hoopoe bird that would help. And the famous story goes that one day Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam was looking for the Hoopoe bird and couldn't find it. And then it was found that the Hoopoe bird had wandered away to a far-off land and heard from another Hoopoe bird about a great queen who was as great as Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam. What? With so much money and power? Well, she was quite a force to contend with. And it was that bird who told Nabi Sulaiman about Bilqis. And Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam was able to go to call her, invite her to his kingdom, and they got married and combined their kingdoms. Ooh, that is awesome. You're going to tell us about this love story someday? Inshallah. Gribik, I can't wait. Yeah, come and join me someday, and I'll tell you about Bibi Bilqis alayhi salam and how she met Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam and changed the way that she was thinking and accepted that Allah is one and fell in love with his wisdom and his piety.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum to all watching. I am back with another series, and today we are starting a brand new series addressing the teenagers in our community. That's right, I will be recording a series of 15 talks directly designed and delivered for teenagers. So before we start the series, I thought, why not sit down and explain to you all what we have in store for you in the next 15 days. So this video will be an introduction to the series. What will the series contain? What topics will be discussed? So I advise both the teenagers and the parents to watch this video first to get an overview of the coming videos. I know many feel a generation gap between themselves and the elders in the community, and statistics have shown that this is down to two specific reasons. Okay, number one, it may be down to a cultural difference, and number two, growing up at a different historical time, which leads to many teenagers saying they don't understand us. Have we heard that all the time? They don't understand us. But I'm not that old, and I have mostly grown up in similar times with similar challenges and similar cultural understanding. Besides, over the years delivering workshops and talks to teenagers, I have built a connection and understanding as to the challenges that teenagers go through. Now, some topics are best kept to one-to-one discussion sessions to protect people's privacy and personal challenges, but there are many challenges which many teenagers go through, which I believe should be discussed openly in a manner which appeals to them. So that's what we want to do. Inshallah, for the next 15 days, I hope to sit down with you all and address many of the relevant topics which I believe really needs to be addressed. I know many in this particular age group, they do not like to be lectured or told what to do and how to behave. And I completely understand that. And that's not what these videos are at all. But during these times, I hope we can just sit down and discuss many topics which are relevant to you. And I address the teenagers when I say this. You are at a very pivotal point during your lifetime. What you do now and in the next coming days will shape and mold you into the adult that you will become. I work with a lot of teenagers, as I mentioned previously, and often they really underestimate how impactful these years will have on your future. The imprint of your soul and the character building which gets molded in these very delicate years. Aspects of education, the friends you surround yourself with, the lack of focus on spirituality, the relationship you have with your parents, and certain actions and behaviors you may pick up during these years, whether they are physical actions or spiritual traits, will no doubt have an impact on your future. And I want you to really focus and contemplate and ponder on these exact words. If you speak to any adult, they would tell you that they wish they had someone who sat down with them during their teenage years or years of adolescence and just spoke to them in a non-judgmental way and offered them guidance in life. Some may have had that guidance, and they would tell you that they are very grateful for it. So that's precisely why this program has been designed and introduced, so that we can sit down with you and we can discuss the topics that you wish to be discussed. We are very fortunate to have several organizations and mosques and Islamic centers who are backing up and supporting these programs, and there is a great lineup of speakers as well speaking about teenage issues, which shows that our community does care. They care about the success of the future generation, and you are the future generation. You will be the future mothers. You will be the future fathers of the community. You will be the future speakers of the community. You will be the future leaders of the community. Statistics have shown that teenagers who belong to a specific faith community or faith group are more likely to have adults in their life or around them that encourage and model positive behaviors and traits. In result, teenagers that belong to a belief system and are directly involved in spiritual and community activities are less likely to go off the rails during adolescence. So you are already at that advantage. You are already at an advantage. And if you are watching this video now and you are a teenager, then I believe you must be applauded because it shows that you do care about your future and shaping your character and advancing in life, and also about your religious aspect and religious awareness. Okay, so that's to the teenagers. Now going to the parents. As experts have proven that in order to build a bridge, the bridge between parent and child, a parent must show interest and conversation in the hobbies and interests of the child. Being actively involved, being aware and involved in the activities and surroundings and company that your child chooses is very important. Now, here's the thing. In these series, I will touch upon a number of issues which I will mention. A lot has changed from when we were growing up, and we must remember that. Even I, who many would not consider as old, even I look at the youth of today and I look at the challenges and the obstacles that they have and find it very foreign. Let me give you an example. Social media. This is one of the topics which I will speak about in the coming days, but let me just briefly touch upon it here. It certainly was not around during my time and when I was growing up, but let me just mention a few points. Now, statistics have shown that a fifth of 13 to 15-year-olds spend 5 hours or more a day on social media. That's 5 hours of constant influence that this is having on your child. The images they see, the songs that they hear, the words that they come across. When we were growing up, the only time our parents had to really worry that we may get influenced in a negative way is when we leave the house. But now, in this day and age, parents must remember that this influence, this impact, this language has entered our homes. Our children are in their rooms with all this external influence, whether it's negative or positive, we don't know, but it's drumming into their heads every day. It influences their speech, it influences the way they dress, it influences the way they behave. And many parents have no clue of what social media is or what happens there. Let me give you just one quick example in this introduction video before I move on. TikTok. TikTok is the new app which has gained so much popularity within the young children and teenagers. What is TikTok? TikTok is simply audio, be it music or voice, which many lip sync to or dance to. And many of our youth are on it. Furthermore, TikTok's minimum age of usage is 13 years old. That's two things. One, many of our youth in our community are using it and dancing to these songs. And number two, go research the top 10 songs used on TikTok. Wallah, when I say, I feel too embarrassed to repeat these words here. It's the most explicit, sexual and offensive lyrics that you would find. And these are the words that are getting subconsciously drummed into our children's heads, all under the label of innocent entertainment. Anyways, I'm going to do a whole episode on social media and the influence it has on an individual, so I advise all parents to watch it, especially those who do not know anything about social media. So, let me outline the topics we shall be discussing in this series. We have a great lineup of topics which we all can contemplate on, the young and old, but I feel even more crucial for the young. Topic number 1, the impact of your friends' circle. A very important topic because you will become who your friends are. We all heard the saying, show me your friends and I will tell you who you are. And the Japanese proverb, which I like, which says, when the character of a man is not clear to you, look at his friends. So the first topic will be the impact of your friend circle. Topic number 2, tips of increasing your spirituality. Because you see, unless someone has a sudden spiritual awakening or life-changing moment, many youngsters say it's hard to increase their spirituality or even feel spiritually connected to start with. So I will be giving you some practical tips to increase your spirituality, which has proven to work. Topic number 3, social media, the double-edged sword. Yes, it seems all youngsters and even adults, to be honest, it seems everyone is glued to their phones these days. But what are the pros and what are the cons? And when it comes to social media, we will be highlighting all that and more, as well as talking about the impact it has on teenagers growing up. We will bring you the statistics and facts and all that good stuff. Topic number 4, how to connect with prayer. The mind does wander, especially when we go to pray for some reason. So how do we connect with prayer? How do we increase concentration? All that and more in episode number 4. Episode number 5, upholding hijab for boys and girls. And I stress on boys and girls, both, because we will question, has hijab changed in this generation? Do we know the true meaning of hijab? What about boys? Do they have a responsibility when it comes to the hijab? Topic number 6, backbiting. You can talk all you want about a boy or a girl in school, but what is the effect it is having on your own soul? Why do people backbite? The psychology behind it. How do we stop backbiting? What effect does it have on the victim's life? That and more in episode number 6, titled Backbiting. Episode number 7 will be controlling anger. How many fights have you seen happen in school and college? How do we control our anger, even in situations which anger us? How do we be in total control of our anger? A very interesting topic. Topic number 8, the struggle against the self. Those voices and emotions inside you which constantly pushes you to commit sins. How do you fight against that? How do you ensure that your desires and emotions do not overtake you? How do you stay in control? All that will be discussed in episode number 8, titled The Struggle Against the Self. Topic number 9 will be, how should I study? Studies. Why should I study? This period of your life might feel like you are drowning in studies, but what is the importance of seeking education, both as advised Islamically as well as the impact that good grades could have on your future? Topic number 10 will be the parent-child relationship. The generation gap between you and your parents may feel bigger the older you get, but it doesn't need to be that way. What is the importance of building a good relationship between you and your parents, and how on many occasions this realization unfortunately comes at a much later stage in life, and in some situations it could be too late. Topic number 11, envy. The grass always does seem greener on the other side, and I think it seems greener on that side to me, but someone always seems to have more than the other, but do they really? How our perspective on life and on the blessings in general could change the level of happiness that we feel. We will discuss that, and how we will also discuss how envy could destroy your life, your happiness, as well as the life and happiness of the one you envy. Topic number 12, connecting with the Quran. Have we abandoned the Quran? Why is the Quran just simply left as a book on the shelf, which we may pick up every now and again, and how do we connect with the Quran? So these are just some of the topics which we will be discussing in this teenage series. Many of these topics really affect the social and spiritual growth of teenagers. This period can be a very, very confusing period, which the self begins to discover who they are. It's a transition period as well as an experimental period for many young teenagers. But we want to ensure that an individual transforms into the best version of themselves that they can possibly be, and that they perfect many of these spiritual as well as social traits, which we mentioned in this introduction video. So I hope to see you in the next 14 episodes, inshallah. I'm really looking forward to this series because I always work with young boys and girls, young teenagers, young adults, and it's always a blessing to see them blossom into the adults that they become. So inshallah, I will join you in the next 14 episodes. Until then, wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Could it be that the solution of some of the most complex problems in our modern world, in engineering, aviation, and medicine, could all be solved with something as simple as a checklist? Well, this is exactly what the author of the Checklist Manifesto, Atul Gawande, argues. that our world is getting more complicated and complex. And with this increased complexity, we need a way to simplify, clarify, and organize our thoughts. And checklists can be a very powerful way in order to do that. This book has been recommended by the likes of Jack Dorsey at Twitter, as well as Bill Gates, and as well as writers such as Malcolm Gladwell. They say that the insights from this book are very powerful and impactful and have real results. So what makes this book so valuable and so powerful and compelling? Let's dive right in. Major idea number one, that in our world of complexity and progress, our world needs simplification and organization, and checklists can provide this for us. Take, for example, if you were diagnosed with a major heart condition in the 1950s. The treatment that you'd be prescribed many times would be bed rest, for example, and you'd be told to rest, and some basic medications would be provided to attend to you. You'd even be allowed to smoke a cigarette if you chose to at that time. Yet in our modern world, medicine has progressed tremendously, and we have new solutions such as cholesterol medications and even open heart surgery and many other advances. Yet with all of this complexity, it has caused a sort of a double-edged sword to emerge. The double-edged sword is that there is so much complexity, it's difficult for professionals to keep up. Take, for example, the reality that there are over 13,000 documented diseases, ailments that are known to us today, that a physician is responsible for knowing. And with all of this complexity, how is someone to know all of these different ailments off the top of their head? A checklist can provide a solution that helps to organize and helps to check for major elements that are at play in this equation. They can not only help in the field of medicine, but rather you will find in engineering, in aviation, in restaurants, and even in finance, checklists can be a very powerful tool that can help us to organize our thoughts and help us actually do the right thing. It's at this point that the author argues that checklists can prevent mistakes. Take this example. A patient who was brought into a surgery room had suffered from a stab wound. Now, the doctors didn't ask what was the cause of the stab wound. They thought it was just a knife wound. When they uncovered this, they realized that the patient had a 1-foot-long gash wound on them. And at that point in time, they realized this was not caused by a knife, but something else. When they asked about it, they found out that there was a costume party, a Halloween costume party, and this person had been attacked by accidentally by a bayonet. A bayonet was that long knife or sword-like item which was at the end or the extended a gun in the 1600s and 1700s. That's what's called a bayonet. That is what caused this individual's injury. But had the physicians asked the question at the beginning, what is the cause of this particular wound, much of the problem could have been solved and they could have adapted to the environment. Consider the following. In the United States, roughly 50 million surgeries are conducted every single year. Of this, 150,000 of these 50 million surgeries, they result in death. Of the 150,000 that result in death, researchers actually argue that about 50% of those, roughly 75,000 deaths that happen in the United States from surgeries are actually avoidable, that they actually may be due to mistakes. The author makes a distinction here in terms of errors. There's the error of ignorance and there is the error of ineptitude. Error of ignorance is not knowing what to do. An error of ineptitude is knowing what to do but forgetting to do it. An error, a mistake in actually doing what you know to do. He says most of our mistakes in our modern world are caused by this second category, where we know what to do, we just forget to do it. And a simple checklist can actually be implemented in order to prevent mistakes in medicine, in aviation, in engineering, and a whole slew of other categories. If you go back to the bayonet example that we just mentioned, had a checklist been implemented where the physicians asked at the beginning, what is the cause of this, they would be able to, for example, have the right amount of blood on hand for the loss of blood supply, for example, they would have the right tools on hand. They would have the right mindset on hand. All of these things could actually help to make better decisions and actually offer better care and better treatment. The next major idea from the book is that in order to be effective, checklists should be short but include all essential aspects. The author argues that there are two types of errors. As mentioned, there is the aspect of an error due to ignorance and an error due to ineptitude. And if you consider the ineptitude ones, you will realize that a small checklist that's not too complicated and a checklist that has the major elements in play of all the killer items will get much further and be much more effective. What's meant by killer items? Killer items are those things that are the main essential bare minimum elements that should be considered. In the case of, for example, medicine, a simple question such as, is this the right patient that we're operating on, may go a long way. One way that we can learn more about checklists and effective checklists is from the aviation industry. In the aviation industry, checklists have long been used and they've been very effective. Experts say that a checklist ideally should have 5 to 9 elements on the upper side. And on top of that, it shouldn't take too long to analyze. Consider this. After 1 minute of analyzing a checklist, the mind begins to get fatigued and it begins to zone out, and it may actually start neglecting essential elements of the checklist. Therefore, keep the elements of the checklist short and also make sure it doesn't take too long to read, and so that the mind does not get tired. This can actually help to craft a more effective checklist that can be implemented. It should also be noted that a checklist is not a thorough guide. It's not something that is totally comprehensive in every element of it. It's not going to be. It's not intended to be. It's just there to make sure that you are able to organize your thoughts, think clearly, think effectively, and implement the main elements of the equation. Again, the airline industry has been a forerunner in this space in order to actually implement effective tools of checklists that you can implement in a whole variety of different fields. The next major idea is that teams and team commitment are vital for making checklists work. The author argues that we no longer live in a world, in an era, in a time of lone heroes. We actually live in a world of complex and teams that actually make projects come to reality. Take, for example, buildings and building construction. In the past, you often had master builders who were responsible for creating these large palace-like structures. Today, that's no longer the case, where you have large, complex project teams in engineering and construction who are working together in order to achieve a goal of building a building. This includes masonry and all the way down to pest control and everything in between to actually make this a reality. And in that process, you have to be able to know the dynamics and how to work together. Teams have to be able to communicate effectively together. Take, for example, the 2009 Hudson River plane crash landing. Many people gave the credit for this crash landing because nobody died in it. The credit was given to the pilot, but the pilot himself said, well, this was a team effort. This was myself, but also the co-pilot and the entire crew on board that worked together and communicated seamlessly in order to make this a success and save people's lives. Another element that's important to consider here is that the language that you use is very important. You should use the language of the environment in which you exist. For example, if you are in the restaurants, you may say something like, fire the mushrooms. Somebody who's in the restaurant space knows exactly what you're saying. Although someone in engineering or aviation or medicine may not exactly quite understand, what do you mean? Do you mean bake or broil or roast? What does that mean? So that has a big impact. Team communication is vital in order to overcome many of these challenges. The same is applicable in the medical field, dealing with surgeries. Is the nurse, for example, who's on hand, is she on the same page with the doctor, the physician, performing the surgery, and vice versa? All of these elements and dynamics should be taken into consideration. Dr. Gawande also goes forward and says to consider not to make things too difficult, actually make them user-friendly. He says, for example, an example where he had a nurse and he told her something at the last second which confused her in terms of the checklist. One way to solve that problem is to try to make the checklist as user-friendly as possible and not confuse people, especially not when you're about to start something as important as surgery. Another tip and tool that the author actually prescribes is that of a huddle before you get started. A huddle where different people meet up together and they begin to discuss what they're about to do, but they first start by introducing themselves. It's interesting to note that in many complex projects in our modern world, in construction, in engineering, in finance, and in medicine, many of the people who are working together may not know each other. A nurse is working from a doctor from a different department, for example. These things may happen. And research shows that when people don't know someone's name on their team, they don't work well or as well as they could. And if they do know each other and they do know each other's names, they actually work better together. So a simple fix can actually be introducing oneself and working together in order to achieve the goal together through a checklist and a team huddle to start with. The next major idea is that checklists are extremely effective to help save against mistakes, to save money, and to ultimately save lives. Medical checklists have saved lives amongst a number of patients. Take, for example, catheters. In particular, central line catheters. Catheters, when they're implemented, can actually have the risk, the central line ones can have the risk especially of infection. When a checklist was implemented by researchers in this environment of central line catheters, they found that this actually saved $175 million in cost, and it saved roughly 1,500 lives. Based on the success of this implementation, the World Health Organization and Atul Gawande, the author of Checklist Manifesto, they implemented a 19-item checklist for 8 hospitals. The results were astonishing, because this checklist, which covered such things as blood loss and having enough blood on hand to making sure you actually have the right patient, believe it or not, many instances the wrong patient is operated on, unfortunately. Nonetheless, all of these items were checked. In the 8 hospitals that implemented the checklist by Dr. Gawande and the World Health Organization, they saw a decrease in 47% of deaths by implementing this checklist. That's how powerful checklists can be. The final major idea that the author presents is that checklists can be effective in a diverse set and a diverse range of different industries. Not only medicine, but restaurants, aviation, engineering, and even finance. He gives an example of a restaurant in Boston that has implemented checklists, and it makes sure that certain things are checked off, such as checks that are done by the sous chef or the head chef, to make sure any special requests that the customers have asked for are implemented, and also to make sure that there is consistency in the process. And the result of that has been that they have won numerous awards by implementing this checklist in place. The final element is that of finance. Finance has also benefited tremendously from checklists. The example is given of the 3-day or the 3-day checklist, or the day 3 checklist that is done by a firm that has over $100 billion in investment capital under management. And they have implemented checklists to tremendous success. All in all, from finance to restaurants to medicine to engineering and aviation, all of these fields can benefit tremendously with a simple tool of a checklist in our increasingly complicated and progressive world. I hope these insights have been valuable to you, and I hope you'll pick up the book and actually implement some of the aspects that the author suggests. Checklists may not be an end-all be-all, but at the same time, they give a framework to help to organize and consolidate and prevent against errors of ineptitude. Errors where you know what to do, but you just forget to do it. The preventable kind, the avoidable kind. So try to implement it in your work, your organization, and in your life, and see what benefits that you can derive from it. All the best to you.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله على رسوله الكريم وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله عز وجل في كتابه المجيد: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. حرمت عليكم أمهاتكم وبناتكم وأخواتكم وعماتكم وخالاتكم وبنات الأخ وبنات الأخت وأمهاتكم اللاتي أرضعنكم وأخواتكم من الرضاعة وأمهات نسائكم صدق الله العلي العظيم. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The Quran and the Sunnah set out the rules of who we can marry. And there are certain relations whom we are forbidden to marry. And they are called the maharim, which is a plural of mahram. So any one of those people who hold that relationship with you, that person is a mahram. And they as a group will be the maharim. They are the following for the men: the mothers, the daughters, the sisters, the father's sister, and the mother's sister, and also the nieces. Okay, the daughters of your brothers and sisters, they are all your mahram, and it is forbidden for you to marry them. And then there are those who become forbidden by radha'a. When a woman feeds you her milk when you are an infant, she becomes like your mother. Okay, and then there are other relations that also come about out of radha'a, and they are also your mahram. And then there are those relationships that come about by marriage. For example, if you have a mother-in-law, and even if your marriage ends, she will be your mahram forever. And then there are temporary relations that can be forbidden in one time and then will be permissible, such as the sister-in-law, the sister of your wife. She is forbidden for you as long as you are married to her sister. Okay, these are your muharram, and they are forbidden to marry. And hijab is not necessary amongst you. The same is for women. Okay, their maharim will be their fathers, the sons, the brothers, the father's brothers, the mother's brothers, and also your nephews. So hijab is not obligatory amongst these relations of the opposite gender. However, hijab is obligatory for all other relationships. All other relationships that are there, whether blood relationships or otherwise, the hijab is necessary. And this includes, for example, the uncle. Okay, if you are female, then you have an uncle, your father's brother. Your father. If you have an aunt, your father's sister, her husband will be your non-mahram. You will not be able to go in front of your aunt's husband without hijab. And similarly, your cousins and your brother-in-law, your husband's brother, they will be your non-mahram. The hijab will be necessary when these relatives come to visit or when you visit them. And ideally, the elders of the household should ensure that these rules are implemented. They have responsibility. It is not proper for cousins to be made like real brothers and sisters, however close they may be. Silatul Rahim is important. They should have good relationships, but they should not behave as with one another as brothers and sisters can behave, in being close at that level, in that physical proximity. Okay, so these things must be observed, because the laws of hijab, although it is misrepresented in certain media, but what the laws of hijab do is they bring about a social order of decency and respect. It brings about respect and modesty where it is implemented in the household or in wider society, and it helps to keep marriages alive and well. It keeps us away from forbidden actions and even forbidden thoughts. So there is a reason behind it. There is a philosophy of hijab. This short session will not suffice for me to go into the importance of hijab. These sessions are for understanding the rules of the Sharia. And in terms of the hijab for women, in terms of their clothing, because hijab is not just about clothing, it's about one presents himself or herself. Now, if a woman is to wear hijab because she is out in public or she is with someone who is not mahram to her, then she is to cover the whole of her body except the face and the hands. This is her hijab, and they shouldn't wear clothing that are tight-fitting and reveal the contours and the shape of the body that can cause attraction. The outer clothing shouldn't be embellished and be a means of beautification. And if there is beautification on the hands or the face, such as by wearing makeup, any form of makeup, then the face has to be covered as well. So this is the obligation of the woman in regards to hijab, the obligation that has been given to us by the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salatu wassalam, by the Messenger of Islam. And we should try our best to abide by these rules. However, if the woman is elderly, then she doesn't need to abide by them in that strict way. She is given some flexibility. Another hijab is there for men as well, that they cover themselves to the level of decency and that they cover their private parts from everyone. It goes without saying. And in terms of looking at one another, then men shouldn't or mustn't look at women except what they are permitted to reveal, the face and the hands. They can look at the face and the hands of a woman, and they're also permitted to look at women who don't care for hijab or they are not Muslim, women in public who go out without hijab. They're permitted to look at them, but they cannot look at them with lustful thoughts and the such. If they do have those thoughts, then they shouldn't look at women in such a way. They should turn their gaze away and control themselves. Similarly, women cannot look at men if more than the usual amount of their bodies are uncovered. And as with the men, any looking with lust is forbidden for women as well. The non-mahrams of the opposite gender, they also mustn't touch one another. No shaking of the hand, no hugging or any kind of such interaction. Okay. And we, in the societies that we live in, we are expected to shake each other's hands and have some kind of skin-to-skin interaction in our day-to-day lives. But the rule of Islam should override such tendencies that are pushed by society. These are the simple laws. There are certain exceptions, but we must abide by what applies to us. We must abide by the laws of the Sharia. There is a reason behind the laws of the hijab. We should abide by them, but in the most strictest of ways. The hijab will protect you. Whether you are a male or a female, your hijab will protect you, and the rules of not looking and not touching and that kind of segregation that the hijab causes between the males and the females who are not related in the manner that I've mentioned, that is good for society. We see in society, due to the interaction of people of the opposite gender, a lot of immodesty and a lot of sins and a lot of violence and abuse, because it is men think that they can do whatever they want. But when the law of Islam overrides what they are thinking, what they wish to do, and they abide by Islam and they keep away from those thoughts, and the women are not out there presenting themselves as sexual objects, then this only good can come from this. And as I said, there are certain exceptions. I mentioned the elderly ladies. They are not expected to wear their hijab in full. And also when it becomes necessary. For example, when a woman is going to a doctor, there are no female doctors available, and the doctor has to see some parts of the body which would otherwise be covered, or he might need to touch her skin, and he will need to touch it without the gloves. Then if it's necessary, then that is fine. But if there are ways to get away from this, for example, if gloves can be worn and he just needs to see, then that is sufficient as well. Then one cannot then allow the doctor to touch your skin with the hand. And this goes both ways for the male and the female in terms of the opposite gender. So these are a few laws, few rules of the hijab that we should abide by. The laws of hijab are there to protect us, to safeguard us from evils, and we should implement them without hesitation. We should be proud of ourselves, proud of our religion, proud Muslims. Within the framework of hijab, we can accomplish much in our lives. We can work and do business, we can study and teach, and any obstacles, any awkwardnesses, short periods of awkwardnesses, they are surmountable, inshallah. They are not real obstacles. And inshallah, if we have that God consciousness within us, that will help us. If we have the desire to abide by Allah's rules and His laws, His sharia, then Allah will give us more and more tawfiq, and He will make us more and more stronger. So may Allah accept what we do from us in terms of our adherence and our obedience to Him, and may Allah keep us safe from such sins and keep us away from even being in such situations where we could possibly commit such sins. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين.